So my first question for you, David, is, why is blockchain a game changer? A lot of people talk about how important it is, but why do you think it's so important?
When the internet was born, a lot of people discounted its importance, and they thought, okay, it was a technical gimmick, I could fairly ignore it. They were half-heartedly debating, what is this @ and the .coms and whatnot. That phenomenon, which at the peak of what we today call the .com bubble was $3 trillion of public companies building the internet, was an exclusively Silicon Valley phenomenon. Today, blockchain is a global revolution, which is laying the groundwork for the next 20 years of technology explosion that we are going to see, built by teams that are not based in Silicon Valley, that are in Shanghai, in Mumbai, in Cape Town or Johannesburg, everywhere in the world. And the soundness of the technology, regardless of the technical details that some of us may not have the patience or the time or the availability to get into, is proven very simply by the fact that Bitcoin's money is there. If it were not a sound technology, Bitcoin's money would be stolen.
So in terms of where you see things going, and Kevin, please jump in if there's anything from your perspective that you think is important. One of the things that I think is really important is that a lot of people don't truly understand this, and I think it's important, David, to focus on it. And that is the difference between blockchain and Bitcoin.
Obviously. So there have been a lot of precursors to the first successful electronic decentralized money. We've had credit cards for 70 years. Still, there are some countries that if you get into a taxi cab, you'd better ask the driver if he accepts credit cards before you start your ride. So it is not surprising that even though Bitcoin has been around for almost 10 years, still it is, as you have mentioned, that wonderfully succinct chart, is in its deceptive phase. A lot of big financial institutions believe they can safely ignore it. Bitcoin is an application of the underlying technology we call blockchain, similarly to how email is the application or web browsing is an application on top of the technology stack we call internet. And Bitcoin can be used for paying for things, can be used as a store of value for some people who say, I set aside some money and then cross my fingers that Bitcoin's exchange rate goes up rather than down. But it is important to keep an eye on the evolution and the strengthening of the underlying technology. When email was king and that was the only application of the internet, many people wouldn't have imagined the things we are doing now. This webinar is made possible by the internet technology, by ubiquitous broadband, and it is science fiction worthy. So we will have science fiction worthy applications of blockchain that are going to be as exciting and exhilarating as being able to talk to our audience today from all over the world.
And on that note, I just want to point out, and I'll talk more about it at the end of the webinar, but the next webinar that Kevin, David, and myself are doing, which is fascinating, is the parallels between the internet boom and bust and what came out of it, and what we can learn from the cryptocurrency boom, possibly bust, and where they lie. So that's the 6th of February, which I highly recommend.